Yeah, just had a bit of technical problems. I think it's sorted out now. See. Bear with me a second. Okie doke. So basically, I've done something on Jesus not so long ago, and some Christians has answered me, but they're not answering the questions that I asked them. So if they're gonna leave comments or make comments, then they need to answer the questions that I'm asking. So let's start with Celsus. Celsus, if many of you don't know, literally was writing around first, second century. Literally nearly destroyed Christianity with the books that he was writing, so much so they had to burn most of his books. And that's why we can't find many of his works today. And most of the works that we do find come through Origen, who was actually um, objecting to his work, I should say. But if you get time to find out who Celsus is and Porphyry and read their work, I've been advocating them for years, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So in Celsus's work, he actually said categorically accused the Christians of changing their gospel stories in many ways in order the better to answer the objection of their opponent. This accusation is that some of them, as it were, in a drunken state, produce self-induced visions, remodeled their gospel from its first written form, and reformed it so that they may be able to refute the objections brought against it. See? So they were just waking up and changing the text how they see fit. Let's even go further. Just some of the things I want you to answer. When we talk about not so much the New Testament but the Old Testament, scholars have found out that there's repetitions and inconsistencies in the first 5 books of the Bible that you call the Pentateuch. As a result of originally independent source of documents have been combined over several centuries, the principal hypothetical source, RJEDP, the documentary hypothesis, is basically what they're talking about, how the sources were mixed up all together to give you your creation story. So if you want books on the documentary hypothesis, you can read books like the Composition of the Pentateuch, Dr. Joe Baden. I've got one of those books there. He goes into that. And another questions that you can ask. If you read Luke 9:27, it states, "But for those enemies of mine who did not want me to be king over them, bring them here and kill them in front of me." This was Jesus speaking, by the way. So basically, whoever opposed him to be king, which he never did become king, he's asking them to bring his enemies in front of him so he can kill them. Mark 16, no one's answered this as yet. They shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. So this is the thing. We've all been to church and we've seen on TV people speaking in tongues. I've seen people claim to heal people, Benny Hinn, Oral Roberts, and the likes. And there's a few cases where people pick up snakes thinking that the snakes won't harm them. But I've never, ever seen anyone drink poison. So I've asked them several times, is this an irresponsible statement that Jesus made in the text? where he was saying, in order to know his followers, these are the things that shall follow them. These are the signs. And one of these signs is that they'll be able to drink poison and no harm will come to them. And I'd really like to see them take that challenge up by drinking the poison. Some of the answers that I've got regarding this verse, Mark 16, which I've been screaming for years, it seems like it's just now people picking up on it. If you are a follower of Christ, Jesus, these are the signs that will follow you. So anytime you ask a pastor or anyone about this verse, they'll either say to me, it was added later by someone else. They'll say to me, it's not to be taken out of context. And I've actually got a video. It is hard to hear because there's a lot of noise, where someone told me that they don't mind. They would drink the poison, but they're not going to drink it just to please me. That's how stupid it gets. So until you answer those questions, don't just say Jesus and Jesus is that. I mean, that's old. Just answer the question. So Porphyry, in his work, what did he say? He said, well then, the proper thing to do would be to use this process as a test for those aspiring to be priests, bishop, or church officers. A deadly drug should be put in front of them, and only those who survive drinking should be elevated to the ranks of the church. If there are those who refuse to submit to such a test, they may as well admit that they do not believe in the things that Jesus said. Porphyry. So Porphyry was telling you from the first, well, he was writing in this late 2nd century, early 3rd century, I think. He was telling us from then that if you're reading the text and the text said that you drink poison and no harm shall come to you, that means anyone who's aspiring to be a bishop, a pastor, any prominent position in the church, they should be able to drink any type of poison and it won't harm them. That's the stupidity we have to live with. And people are confused about this verse, so much so that people have already told me that couldn't have been Jesus's words. And a prominent Christian told me that this was added much later. The question is, if it's added much later, who had access to the text to add it? And how do we know what was added from what wasn't added? How do we know that? It doesn't stop to say, oh, the person just wrote this little verse in there. And why would someone put that in there? And why would you keep reprinting it? Because it's irresponsible. Any teenagers who are aspiring to be in the church or have a love of Christ, as most of you keep leaving comments and saying, then how comes you're not drinking the poison? Before you have a dialogue with me, drink the poison, as the verse says, because then I would know these are the signs that follow you. So if you're going to leave a comment, then leave a comment and answer me about that. And that's all I wanted to say. So I hope you leave a comment on that and answer the question so I can get back to you. And we should sign out.